Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Catania, and I'm with the Better Business Bureau for Metro Atlanta. And I'd just like to extend a warm welcome to all of you and thank you for joining us for our initial live video series called Navigating a New Normal. We all know that these are extraordinary times, and with so much uncertainty, we understand that small businesses need resources that they can trust. And we at the Better Business Bureau want to kick off our live web series, Navigating a New Normal, so that you have tools and resources that help you manage your business and your life. We know that those two things are interchangeable, and we know that oftentimes small business and their livelihood is all about trust and reputation. So we hope that you find the information we're going to provide useful and beneficial. While I would love to do a formal introduction for our highly celebrated speaker today, I'm going to turn that honor over to one of our good friends and partners in the Metro Atlanta community, Fred Blankenship from WSB TV. Believe it or not, Fred is probably a little bit more eloquent than I am, so I'm going to let Fred do this much deserved introduction. So Fred, would you mind doing the honors of introducing Mr. Ashley Bell from the Small Business Administration?
Hello, I'm Fred Blankenship. Today is a special webinar in the ongoing Better Business Bureau Building Trust in Trying Times webcast series. We welcome Mr. Ashley Bell, the Region 4 Regional Administrator for the Small Business Administration. Mr. Bell will discuss different parts of the CARES Act and how small businesses throughout the Southeast region can protect their interest. Mr. Bell has been a small business owner himself, starting at the age of 22 and eventually founding Generation Inspiration, an organization dedicated to teaching life skills not taught in the classroom to at-risk students. Mr. Bell began his career as a public defender and went on to become a celebrated trial attorney and co-founder of the law firm Bell & Washington LLP, based in Atlanta. He was elected as a Hall County Commissioner at the age of 27 and eventually went on to spend time with organizations such as the U.S. Peace Corps and U.S. Department of State. Mr. Bell has been called the most unique politico of his generation by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, as he holds the distinction of being the only person in over half a century to be elected as a delegate to both the Republican and Democratic national conventions. He's been recognized as a recipient of the NAACP Drum Major for Justice Award for his work fighting environmental racism as a county commissioner, as well as served with distinction as the youngest general counsel and special counsel for the National Conference of Black Mayors. He served with the National Association of Black County Officials and National League of Cities Black Caucus, and is a proud alumnus of the Congressional Black Caucus Internship Program. Ashley is a graduate of Valdosta State University and earned his law degree from LSU and was also a 21st Century Leadership Fellow at Harvard University. Not bad. And his wife, Lauren, and their 3 children, guess what? They're also pretty proud of him as well. It is an honor and privilege to welcome Mr. Ashley Bell to the Better Business Bureau Building Trust in Trying Times web series.
Good morning, everyone, and again, welcome. My name is Julie Brooks, and I am with the Better Business Bureau of Metro Atlanta as well. As Brian mentioned, Ashley D. Bell is with us today to talk about the Small Business Administration, the CARES Act, and the funding that may still be available to you as a small business owner. We also have with us Terri Denison, who is the District Director of the Georgia District Office of the Small Business Administration. Ashley and Terri, thank you so much to both of you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Julie, for that introduction. Thank you for that just heartfelt introduction as well. I appreciate you giving that. I know it took a little time, but it is always good even for me to just be reminded of how far we all have come. As a small business owner since my early 20s, and I find myself much like many of the business owners on this call today, looking for a new normal, looking for a way of making sure that all of our interests can survive this and recover and be better on the other end of it. So It's really important the work that you're doing, Brian, with the Better Business Bureau and Julie and all the folks who helped put this call on today. Your work is so important. As a business owner myself, I've relied on the Better Business Bureau for years, and it's always been a place where people can find good information and with clarity and with veracity to make sure that folks are being transparent. And this is just a good place to come get good information. So I hope today, by having myself on this call and also District Director Terri Denison, that we can talk about the resources available. And Terri is going to conclude the call for me and make sure that she can stay on and answer any questions that you all may have. But I want to start off by saying, especially in the state of Georgia, the CARES Act has been a critical point of us pivoting from shutting our economy down for health reasons to make sure that people are safe and businesses are safe. And now that we're beginning the process of reopening, and Georgia is steps ahead of that than most states. And with that proposition, we want to make sure that we're continuing to offer resources and we're continuing to share good information about how we all can do better together. Now, the CARES Act has been a critical part of putting more than $14 billion back into the Georgia economy, saving tens of thousands of jobs across the state. And that's very important. As you can see, when the president announced last week about our jobs report, we have been on a downward spiral, losing millions and millions of jobs all across this country because of social distancing and other measures that have stalled the economy. But just as the president reminded us, and as a bipartisan group of senators and Republicans that have and Democrats that have come together to pass the CARES Act, that our best days are ahead of us. We're turning the corner. Our economic recovery begins now. And we saw that over 2 million jobs have been created. And those 2 million jobs that are being created, many of those jobs are coming from this very act that we're talking about today. The ability for small business owners like yourselves to be able to maintain that relationship with your employees, for those sole proprietors and independent contractors, for you to be able to pay yourself to make sure you can continue to deliver the goods and services that are so desperately needed in the communities across Metro Atlanta, across Georgia, and around the Southeast and the country. So what's new? What's new is the fact that our payroll protection program has been given some flexibility. I want to say hats off to all of you who've reached out to our office and to me directly, letting me know the challenges that you faced with the rigidity of the previous act. You know, we've done hundreds and hundreds of webinars and had over hundreds of thousands of people on those webinars and teletown halls, talking to us directly, letting us know. So I want you to know that this Payroll Protection Flexibility Act is a reflection of the people who take the time to be on calls like this. These are important. We need to hear directly from you. And I think that hearing from you directly has allowed us to push forward a new piece of legislation that gives so much more flexibility that I'm going to let Terri talk in more detail about, but it gives tremendous flexibility to make sure that you can spend more money paying your bills and make sure you can spend more time working on what's next, to give you more flexibility with the cash flow that you receive from payroll protection. And I think that's just critical because business owners need flexibility. I think we hear you loud and clear. The leadership of SBA and the White House hear you loud and clear that you need that flexibility. And we're going to make sure you continue to have that flexibility. So I hope today, as we go through in more detail what this new era of payroll protection has for you, that we also get a chance to hear directly from you. And you can always find Terri and myself available in the Georgia office. But and make sure you continue to let us know the challenges that you're facing, because it's something that, you know, we've all used the word unprecedented so many times. But the reality is, you know, yes, this situation is unique, but so are the American entrepreneurs. So very much so the entrepreneurs in Georgia and around the Metro Atlanta area. We need the best ideas from you. Nothing we're going to do in DC is going to be helpful unless it comes from and originates from the people it's actually going to affect. And those are the people on this call. We need to get more feedback from you. So as we go through this, that we get it right, that we give ourselves a chance to listen to the marketplace and put forth ideas that are going to be relevant at the time they're delivered. We don't want to create any ideas that by the time they actually get to you, they're too late. So we think the payroll protection program was just in time before that 8 weeks hit from the initial date that it was kicked off, to give you some flexibility and breathing room. So now I want to turn it over to Terri Denison, who is our state director for the state of Georgia. Terry's been with us a long time, has been a great advocate for small businesses around the state of Georgia, and she'll be happy to make sure that all of your questions are answered going forward as we talk about what forgiveness looks like, as we talk about how do we make sure the money that you're getting goes as far as it can as we continue to make sure this economic recovery is strong. So, Terri, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you,
Okay,
Ashley.
thank you, Ashley.
Sorry, Terry, before you get started, I just let our attendees know if you have questions, please feel free to send in the question slash chat box. And we're going to get to as many questions as we can. We do have some questions that were already submitted. So please go ahead and do that if you haven't already. I just wanted to put that out there as well. Thank you, Terry. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just kind of keep my comments to the basics because I really want to leave time for people to ask and get answers to their specific questions. But the Paycheck Protection Program is a loan program. It follows the SBA guarantee model where we're not directly funding the loan. We are guaranteeing the loan made by a participating lender. PPP loans can be up to $10 million, but the average loan sizes have been far less than that. I think the last one I saw was around $220,000 as an average loan size nationwide. As the title suggests, the emphasis of this loan is to help businesses cover their payroll expenses, that's salaries, wages, and related expenses primarily. Up to 60% of loan proceeds should be used for that. The other 40% could be used for other expenses, specifically rent, payments for your business location. If you're buying that building, the interest payments related to the mortgage, and then utilities, which covers gas, light, water, transportation, and internet-related costs, telecommunication costs. There have been changes to the program where you now you have up to 24 weeks to pay these expenses and utilize those proceeds. So to start off with, the application process, you would go to a participating lender, not the SBA directly, submit an application. That lender will in turn ask the SBA to guarantee the loan. Once we approve that guarantee, the lender disperses the funds for the loan. And as I mentioned, you now have 24 weeks as opposed to the original 8 weeks in which to utilize those funds. People like this because the fact that there's the opportunity to forgive the loan and don't have to pay it back. There are conditions for that. First and foremost, at least 60% of the proceeds have to be used for payroll expenses. During that period of time that we're looking at, that 24 weeks, the idea is that you don't want to have your payroll costs or expenditures, rather, go less than 25%. In other words, a reduction of 25% from the pre-COVID-19 period. And then to keep the FTEs, full-time equivalent, the same. There are some exceptions to that because of the difficulties, and we can get to those a little later if we want to, if you have specific questions. But for example, if you made a good faith effort to bring employees on that maybe you had let go, they are not interested in coming back, that is not held against you. If you try to recruit new employees and were able to find qualified employees, that is also a way in which that would not be held against you and affect your ability to have the loan forgiven. The loan can be forgiven in full or in part. Whatever is not forgiven becomes now a 5-year loan as opposed to 2 years, 1% interest rate, which is unheard of, and we kind of go from there. At the end of the covered period, which is now 24 weeks, the borrower would go back to that lender that provided the original loan and submit an application for forgiveness. And that's when you share specifically how the monies were spent and to provide supporting documentation to substantiate those claims. The lender looks at it, makes a determination as to whether the loan is forgiven in whole or in part, and then requests SBA to reimburse them for that forgiven percentage, either in whole or in part. And that's in a nutshell the process. I think now probably we should go to specific questions that have already been asked or some of the ones that are just coming in.
Okay, thank you so much, Terry. We did have a couple of people say that they couldn't hear you really clearly, so I just wanted to let you know that as well. One of the questions regarding PPP is, it sounds like there's still money available and people can still apply. Is that true?
That is true. There's approximately $130 billion left.
Okay. All right. And then also, is this like a first come, first served basis? Is that how the funds are dispersed?
Yes, that is the case. First come, first served.
Okay. Now, regarding PPP, is there something that would make someone ineligible?
Okay. Probably the main reason someone would be ineligible would be because the type of business is not generally eligible for SBA lending. For example, a business like an adult entertainment business, a gentleman's club type business, that wouldn't be eligible. A business where they are currently in active bankruptcy would not be eligible. If the owner has a criminal record, is a felony, and there's some qualifiers to that, so it's not absolute, but that may cause an eligibility issue. And then, of course, if the business does not qualify as a small business, fewer than 500 employees, or otherwise meet one of our the small business size standards for that particular industry, that would render them ineligible.
Okay. Now, do independent contractors count in PPP loan calculations?
For an applicant that utilizes independent contractors, 1099, they definitely cannot include those individuals. The reason is that independent contractors, by definition, are their own business entity. And therefore, those ICDs can apply for PPP loans themselves for their enterprise. The business that is utilizing the independent contractors would be able to use PPP for that owner's salary if they take one, or for net earnings, and then the other things mentioned, the business rent, business mortgage interest payment, and utilities.
Okay, thank you. And what is the time frame like from approval to actually receiving funds for the PPP?
Okay, that process, don't have a definite time frame, but it is probably on average within a couple week time frame. A lot of that is determined by the front end of the process, where the business is applying to the commercial lender and getting the appropriate information to the lender, completing the application correctly. Once the lender chooses to go forward with the application to SBA, that process is electronic and takes maybe a few days. And then the lender, once they get that approval from us, can proceed with dispersing the funds. And they have 10 days to do that.
Okay. All right. And then this is a question from one of our attendees, Ron. He wants to know, when will we know what records we need to apply for forgiveness?
Okay. You can apply for forgiveness and at the end of your covered period. And the covered period is from the day that the loan proceeds are dispersed. You count 24 weeks from that time, because thanks to the new changes to the PPP program, you now have a 24-week covered period versus 8. They can submit for forgiveness at the end of that period. And maybe I think even start the week before the end of the period to start that application process. And if that process would follow the same path as the initial application, the borrower would submit the forgiveness application to the lending institution. They, in turn, will, once they have gone through the calculations, determine how much, if not all, of the loan is forgivable, will then essentially ask SBA to reimburse that lender for what was forgiven.
Okay. Now, this question is from Leanne, one of our attendees. She wants to know, if a business receives PPP and is then approved for the SBA EIDL loan, is there anything that would disqualify forgiveness by also taking the EIDL? She just wants to know that.
Okay. The main rule about you can have a PPP loan and an EIDL, economic injury disaster loan. The main caveat there is that you cannot use the proceeds for the same thing. Okay. Unlike the EIDL loan, unlike the PPP, which dictates, okay, you got to use at least 60% for payroll related expenses, the other 40% for the things I mentioned. EIDL does not have that precise of a dictation on what you can use it for, long as it has to do with the operations of the business. So in that case, you may have a situation, depending on number of employees that you actually have, where you would use the PPP almost exclusively for payroll-related expenses, and then you're free to use the EIDL for all the other operational expenses that aren't payroll-related.
Okay. So you can apply for both, but you can't use them for the same thing. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is correct. Now, of course, there is another caveat here, and that is currently the only EIDL applications the agency has taken is for businesses that are agricultural businesses.
Okay.
That change came at the end of April when we got the second round of funding for EIDL loans.
Okay.
So at this point, really, you only have people not already applied for an EIDL loan before that window closed. You really only have PPP now.
Okay. This question is for Julie, and she's one of our attendees. She'd like to know, is the SBA going to let the banks evaluate validity of the request for forgiveness of the PPP loans?
Well, actually, they are the primary evaluator of the forgiveness application.
Okay.
Where SBA will do a second level of review, really on the forgiveness, is application is if that loan is more than $2 million. As you remember, there was a lot of things in the news about larger businesses getting PPP loans in the initial round. And as a result of that, or in response to that, Treasury and SBA agreed that we would look at, SBA would look at any request for forgiveness for loans above $2 million, and we would have to okay that before the lender finalize that forgiveness. But less than $2 million is going to be pretty much the lender's call.
Okay. And then can you go to the bank and provide qualified documentation anytime after July 1st? That's the second part.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Can you go to
Question.
the bank and provide qualified documentation anytime after July 1st? That was the second part of the question.
Oh, in terms of asking for forgiveness
This was
for the
for
loan?
the forgiveness of the PPP loan. Yes.
Yeah, you can actually, anytime after as you end your covered period for the loan,
Mhm.
then you can submit that information. But it really doesn't behoove you to submit anything until you're nearing the end of or at the end of the covered period, which is now 24 weeks. For borrowers that submitted, that were approved for a PPP loan prior to the enactment of the changes, and it was 8 weeks into your covered period, you can opt now with the changes to either stick with the 8-week period or take on the 24-week period. And that's a discussion you would have with the lender that made the PPP loan, whether you want to stick with the 8 weeks and figure out forgiveness from that point, or take advantage of the full 24 weeks and then ask for forgiveness at that point.
Okay. Now, Claire, she's an attendee, and this question is, okay, so she says many small nonprofits that are not C3s were excluded from the application for PPP. Is there going to be another version of PPP, and will 501c6 organizations be included in that?
Got you. I know that was there was a lot of discussion around that, and currently, looking at what the changes that were made last week in the program, that was not one of them. So my understanding is that 501c6s are still ineligible.
Okay.
I'm not sure why that change was not made, but it was not present in the change.
Okay. And Ron has a question. He's one of our attendees. He's wanting to know, can we ask for forgiveness before 4 weeks?
Can you ask for it? My understanding is you have to ask for it. You can't submit anything until the end or the week before the last week of the cover period. I don't think that there really isn't a provision to allow forgiveness as you go. You submit one forgiveness application. So there really is no incentive or reason really to submit it that soon. You want to do it at the end or towards the end of the covered period, which now could be up to 24 weeks.
Right. He actually, he sent another message. I apologize. It says that was 24 weeks, not 4. So I guess he's asking, can we ask for forgiveness before 24 weeks? I'm sorry, Ron.
So it was, yes, you can, toward the end of 24 weeks, yes, that's when you would submit that forgiveness application.
Okay, good. And when do you start paying back the loans? That was a question as well.
Okay. You do have a deferment period. Initially, it was 6 months, but with the changes to the program enacted last week, that can go as long as 10 months. before you actually can start repaying any loan amount due to non-forgiveness.
Okay, great. Now it looks like this question is from Leanne. Would borrowers who were initially in the 8-week forgiveness period need to contact to request the extension to 24, or is it automatically going to extend to 24 weeks?
No, you would have to actually request that of the lender, and it has to be mutual. So it can't be done unilaterally. So both the borrower and the lender would have to agree to change that period.
Terry, while we're waiting for Julie, it sounds like Julie's audio may have given out for a second. We've been focused mostly on payroll protection program. For businesses that perhaps do not qualify or perhaps were not able to take advantage of the PPP protection loans, are there other CARES Act opportunities still available to small businesses to take advantage of outside of PPP?
Okay. I'm just trying to think offhand if there is. In terms of like lending and financing, there isn't. There are things that are done that, first of all, we have our other programs, like our microloan program, 7A program, 504 loan program. More than likely, a microloan or 7A general loan guarantee program might be helpful to those businesses. Also, I would say check with your state and local government. I know most of the people here, the audience is Georgia, but you have some people who are outside of the state. But I would check with your local government as well as your state government if you're outside of Georgia, because there have been efforts at that level as well to provide resources to some of these smaller businesses that PPP was not the best fit for, or they weren't eligible for.
Thanks, Terry. And Julie, if you've reconnected, you're still on mute, so we can't hear your questions, but I'll try to field one or two more. Oh, go ahead, Julie.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what happened.
No.
Everyone, I am back. Okay.
Good.
Thank you so much, Brian, for filling in. And now I do have another question. This is from David. He's one of our attendees. If you have payroll that will create complete forgiveness of the PPP loan in, say, 12 weeks, can you apply based on that time frame? Or will you be forced to wait the whole 24 weeks before doing your calculations and applying?
Now that's a good one. Let me think about this for just a sec. Yeah. Okay, I think I understand. There's a couple things. I guess it depends on your coverage. If it is, I'm curious if it's a seasonal business. I know there are some provisions if it's a more seasonal business. You have to establish two time frames here, kind of your pre-COVID time frame, and there is guidance on that in terms of the period of time that you could use as kind of your base. And if you're seasonal, you have some other options. And then the covered period, which is the period from the time the loan is dispersed until the end of that period, which is either 8 or 24 weeks. So I'm not quite sure, why necessarily calculating it beforehand. And that may be something I can follow with individual. I can leave you my contact info.
Okay.
I could pass it on perhaps. I'm not sure how to do that. Or I could give out let me just give out my email address.
Okay.
And ask that person to contact me directly. And then we can research that, because I want to make sure it's the right answer. And I'll be glad to share that with you too if you want to send it out to others. My email address is Terri, T as in Tom, ERRI dot E as in David, ENISON at SBA.gov. So Terri.Denison at SBA.gov.
Okay, thank you. One last question. This is from Vicky. She'd like to know, is there a time deadline to apply for forgiveness, i.e. the number of days from covered period date?
Is there a difference in the forgiveness level or the percentage of forgiveness?
She wants to know if there is a time deadline to apply for forgiveness as far as the number of days from the covered period date. That's what I'm reading.
Okay. Got you. The hard fast date is December 31st, the end of the year. I think that it would be at the end of the covered period, but the statute does say up to December 31st. So I would ask for the forgiveness definitely no later than that.
Okay. All right, great. Well, this is going to actually conclude our webinar today. I want to just thank you, Terri, and also Ashley. I know he had to, he's traveling, but I wanted to thank you both for joining us for this live web series, Navigating the New Normal. And we will continue to let everyone know what it is we're doing with our BBB, and hopefully we are being helpful to the small businesses in the area. Thanks again, Terri.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right, everyone. And if you ever need us, you can always reach us at bbb.org. And I know some of you, if you are accredited businesses, you have been in contact with me as well. We thank you all for your time, and you all stay safe and take care.